This is what I can't understand just quickly about the Giants, because this is NFL all the time around here, and rightly so. And we're actually going to get into a conversation about that later on, too. But, people are annoyed about Aaron Rodgers not making a decision.
Well,
I get that.
Adam Schefter's annoyed, and then I guess everybody else is annoyed with him because he's annoyed.
And I do understand that from the standpoint of, it's not like the Jets, said just 3 days ago, we're not bringing you back. He's had time to think about this. I know it's a big decision.
He tried to stay with the Jets. So
I know he did.
The point being, if he tried to stay with the Jets, that means, I think in his heart, he wants to play.
I do too. Do you think there's people out there that think he's weighing the decision of playing, not playing, as opposed to where to play?
When you work at a sports talk station, you walk around here and you talk sports with people who work here. And I was talking to Maggie this morning, and Maggie was saying to me that she thought maybe the decision's already been made that he's going to retire. And I said, well, I don't think so, Maggie. I think he wanted to play. And I said last week, if it were 1 year, if he were going to play for 1 year, and that was it, then maybe I would consider Minnesota, because that seems to make some sense.
They're built to win.
O'Connell, and they're built to win right now, and they refortified their defense. They've had one of the better runs here in free agency this offseason, so it's one of the top 5 defensive signings, I think, during the season was what they did, and I think that they like their team right now, and I don't necessarily know that they trust J.J. McCarthy. So maybe just for 1 year, come in kind of like Brett Favre did, go there, and maybe take that team to the playoffs. And I love the fact that it's Kevin O'Connell as his coach. That would be great. But then I was thinking, if he wanted to play 2 more years and he wanted a little bit more money, or not a little bit more, a lot more money, then the place to go would be Pittsburgh, because they don't really have a young quarterback to speak of. Now, they just signed Mason Rudolph.
I saw that. I actually an update on my phone yesterday as I was watching the games at the bar.
That's a backup number that they gave him. It's kind of like what Mac Jones got for San Francisco. These are backup numbers. Gardner Minshew just got a backup number, and I think he's going to be, where's he going? Kansas City. So those guys are all in around the $5 to $6 million range. We're still talking about $40 million here. And that is a ton of money, and he still can play. And I saw him yesterday. He was walking on the beach with a blanket around him.
Yes. Became a meme very quickly.
Yeah, and I think he's, maybe he's pondering a little bit as to, does he want to come back to New Jersey? Because he still probably has his house here. And,
sure.
And I think the Giants, and listening to Darius Slayton talk yesterday, I think he felt like, or he feels like they're a quarterback away. So that's the mindset over there for the Giants, just so you know, whether you believe it or not.
Well, they should believe it if they're on the team. I mean, I would like to think so.
But that's what they're saying. But, man, Pittsburgh offers a very unique opportunity. I don't know how good that Cincinnati defense is going to be. I know Baltimore's defense is going to be a pain in the ass, and I know Cleveland's defense is going to be a pain in the ass. But, man, those wide receivers, that could be something.
No question. I guess the question I have for you is, if I were the Giants, and you're looking at the Giants outside in just like I am, do you think the plan has just shifted week to week? Because for me, I feel like all along it was, we're going to draft a quarterback, and I don't know if they love Sam. It seemed like they were really attached to Shedeur Sanders. Then you had whatever's going on with him, and some mock drafts have him falling way down. Others still have the Giants taking him at 3. Do you think the initial plan was, we're going to end up with Shedeur Sanders, would love to have a veteran quarterback in here to kind of help him along? Because then you find out the Matthew Stafford thing. I feel like, again, outside looking in, it feels like they're just kind of shifting with the wind what they're trying to do.
They have to. I mean, it's fluid. The whole thing is fluid.
They do, but they don't, though, because you're right. It is fluid. But if you're really, gung-ho on, we want Shedeur Sanders, as an example, as our future quarterback, as was rumored. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, why not a Jameis Winston? Like, lock it up now, only from the standpoint of, you don't expect the kid to play for the first 6 or 7 weeks.
I think they really want to win. They really want to win. And the fallback and the safety valve may be Russell Wilson. It may not excite anybody.
Then why is Joe Flacco in yesterday?
Because, again, Russell Wilson may end up going to Cleveland. The whole thing is fluid. And it really comes down to how much money you want to spend, how much you want to give this guy. What are you telling this guy in terms of your commitment to him is? I mean, I think if they would have signed Matthew Stafford, they would have had a 2-year commitment. They would have passed on the quarterback. And, they would have tried to add one of these great defensive players, or maybe Travis Hunter falls to him. Then maybe Mason Graham is somebody that they really like. Maybe Abdul Carter is there, although I don't think he will be. But I just think that under the current set of circumstances with the free agency and with the draft, there's a lot of uncertainty for a lot of teams, and there's probably about 12 to 14 teams that are really settled at quarterback, and maybe about 8 of them that are really happy with their quarterback. The rest of the league has got question marks, and they don't really know what the hell they're going to get out of their quarterback. And that's why I think the Giants are trying so hard to get an established veteran in here. And like Joe Flacco may be like the last resort.
But does that, all right, so would that signify to you, though, that they are going to draft a quarterback? Because while Joe Flacco had a couple of nice moments in Cleveland, let's be honest, he hasn't been good in years. He hasn't been.
No, I know that, and plus he seems like he's flat. He's like a flatliner.
Correct.
He's not somebody that's going to go walking in there. Although he's a very popular teammate, I might say. And look, he's a Super Bowl winner. He's been around. You know, he is the perfect guy. But like, if he is the perfect guy for a young quarterback to learn from, why the hell are the Colts going to Daniel Jones?
I have no idea.
Because they don't believe in Anthony Richardson. They don't. They tried to trade him this offseason. So they think that Daniel Jones has got a really good chance of being the starter out there in Indianapolis, and that's why he left Minnesota. So I still think there's 3 teams involved for, and there may be 4. I don't think.
You think a 4th?
Well, not for Aaron Rodgers, but definitely for Russell Wilson, and that includes Cleveland. So I don't think Minnesota's looking at Russell. Cleveland may be looking at Russell, and I think the Giants are looking at Russell. But again, it's all a fallback waiting on a decision from Aaron Rodgers.
All right, so if you assume Aaron Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh or Minnesota, let's just make that an assumption for now. To me, the one thing I wouldn't want to see happen is the Giants end up drafting. Forget Ward. I'm just assuming he's off the board by the time they draft
unless they trade up to number 1.
Unless they move up, absolutely. So you think if they were 1, you think Ward would be the guy?
I think he would definitely be the guy.
Okay, so now let's assume he's off the board, and at 3, Shedeur Sanders is sitting there.
No,
you would not take him.
It's not that I wouldn't take him. I don't think they're going to take him.
You don't.
Here's the thing about Shedeur Sanders, and I can only tell you from personal experience. I feel like what's happening to him, for whatever reason, brashness, confidence, aloofness, whatever the negativity surrounding him is, I had that myself. I had to deal with that myself. That was part of the reason why I fell.
Yep.
I mean, it's not the whole reason, but it's one of the reasons why. And because my first impression at the combine probably was not great. No matter what my college coach said, who was a pro coach prior to coming to college, Bobby Ross, and no matter how much he and Ralph Friedgen supported me to all the NFL teams that came into Maryland to talk about me, for some reason they were turned off by me. For whatever reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe I was brash. Maybe I was too cocky. Maybe I was overconfident. And maybe that's what Shedeur is dealing with now. It sounds a lot like what happened to me. That doesn't mean he can't play in the NFL. I proved that I could play in the NFL. So, and I still think he has in his brain the thought that he can handle this because of who his dad is. He's not an explosive player, but that doesn't mean he can't play. Tom Brady was not an explosive player coming out of Michigan.
He did okay.
And he did just fine.
He did all right.
And there's a lot of guys that fall into that category. And it may be a disappointing day for Shedeur, but it also may be a humbling awakening for him.
And you tell me if I'm wrong. I think one of the biggest things for a guy to be successful in the NFL, you need the talent. You have to be able to play the position. But to me, it's the headspace. You've got to be able to handle it. And how would he not be able to handle it?
That's what I'm saying. That's the thing that I think that he does have. And I always go back to when we had Patrick Mahomes in here. Patrick Mahomes just blew me away, just with this whole presence, and you could just feel it. You could see it. And there was a difference because we had Deshaun Watson in here too, and they were 2 completely different people. And I wasn't sold on Deshaun, even though he went on to have a good start to his young career. I wasn't nearly as sold on him as I was Patrick, just simply because Patrick seemed to be more mature, expected to win, expected that he was going to be a success at the next level. And thankfully for him, he was drafted in a good environment. You know, so was Deshaun Watson originally with Bill O'Brien.
Sure.
And he had initial success with DeAndre Hopkins and all those guys down there in Houston. Vrabel was on that staff. They had a really good staff. They had things going in the right direction, and all of a sudden, things fell off the rails for whatever reason, whether it be Bill O'Brien's fault, whether it be the owner's fault, whether it be the GM's fault, whether it be Deshaun Watson's fault. They all had a hand in the demise of the Houston Texans prior to DeMeco Ryans getting there. So I just think that I don't know if this is the right environment for a guy like Shedeur Sanders at the current state of the Giants.
Maybe, but I look at the Giants as a team that if they don't end up taking a quarterback in the first round, or I guess maybe even the second round, and maybe that's their plan, I don't know.
Which is fine. I would not have a problem with that.
Especially if you have conviction over the kid you're drafting and you think he can play at this level.
Especially
all good.
If it's like a Jackson Dart, or maybe it's a Kyle McCord, or maybe it's one of these, a Jalen Milroe. It could be any of those guys, but I just don't think if it's not Cam Ward at the top of this draft, then I think they either trade out, or they get a bona fide, should-be rookie starter at a very important position, either defensive back, defensive tackle, or offensive tackle.
Here's my question then. Then if Aaron Rodgers isn't coming here, and I do think most people don't think he's coming here.
Then it's going to be Russell Wilson.
But you also just said you could be in the bidding for Wilson if you got other teams that want him. Like the Giants could be a team that's sitting at the altar with no quarterback.
I understand that, or Joe Flacco.
Which is no quarterback at this point. I mean, yes, he could start for the first 5-6 games for sure and then hand things over to the quarterback. But if you're telling me that they don't like Shedeur Sanders and maybe they go for a kid in the second round, maybe that's the guy. I feel like they've made moves defensively to get better this year or this offseason.
Right.
Compete with the Eagles and Commanders, I have no idea. But I feel like they'll be a better football team. I think with Andrew Thomas healthy, you can say all you want about the line. The first 8 games of last season, they were pretty damn good up front. And if they're healthy, they should be. It's the one piece they're missing. And to me, I would think the veteran quarterback, whether it's Russell Wilson, whoever it might be, even a Jameis Winston who can at least play the position a little bit, knowing he's not your quarterback for the full year, it allows you to draft the kid, sit the first 8 weeks, and then almost like Eli Manning and Kurt Warner.
You're right. I know that. But they also have to be careful about what they're telling these quarterbacks and their agents when they come in, because they don't want to tell them their draft plans because they don't want the rest of the league to know who they're thinking about drafting. Think about that for a second.
I get that because that'll get out immediately.
Right. So they sitting down with Russell Wilson today or saying to him, hey, look, we want you here for a year because we are drafting one of these young quarterbacks. They're not going to tell him that.
I wouldn't think so.
They can't tell him that.
The other thing, too, is the idea of and I've been on this for a long time. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I watched Sanders play more than a game or two at most.
I watched a lot of his games.
What I do know is 75% completion percentage.
Oh, he
had
a lot
of touchdowns.
College football is completely different.
I know it is.
than the NFL.
I know. But I do think there's something about him that I think would excite a fan base and lend hope to a fan base that's been longing for another guy since Eli got old.
He dominated at the HBCU that he played at. And I would say, yeah, he played much above average at Colorado.
He played great at Colorado.
But when I watch the games, there's a lot. He's standing back there for 5 or 6 seconds.
Understood. I know you got to get rid of the ball.
I know people are saying, "Oh, he didn't have this great offensive line." I'm like, I didn't see him, a lot of times dropping back and just letting it fly. I saw a lot of behind the line of the scrimmage stuff, move around, the college football field because of the hash marks.
But isn't that part of the NFL game though now too? It's not just 1985 where you drop back and throw.
See this throw right here? This throw here that CBS Sports Network is throwing is right in the face of a blitz, and it's a great throw. It's right. It's on the money. It's a little bit behind the receiver, but it's a completion. And the beauty of it is that he stood in there and he showed that he could take a hit and deliver the football. So that's a very important part. Then you have this other thing going on right now, and this is Louis Riddick out there kind of debunking all of this negativity that's coming Shedeur's way. And I would expect Louis Riddick to do that. Why would I expect him to do that? Because he's great friends with Dion Sanders. And Dion Sanders told the Jets, if you don't hire this guy as your next GM, there's something wrong with you. If you remember that.
I do remember that.
So there's, I hate that when crap like this happens to players, but this is the part of the process that they have to go through. So maybe it could be a little bit of humble pie that Shedeur is eating, but I still think he's going to go in the first round. I just don't know where, and I don't think at number 3, unless the Giants are desperate and they don't get one of these guys that they feel like could lead their team at least to a competitive level.
Who was the former Giants quarterback that was at Colorado? Not quarterback, coach that was at Colorado. I'm blanking out on his name. He got run out of here.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, he is right. Thank you. Of all people, Al, appreciate that.
I didn't say it on there.
Pat Shurmur.
Yes, Pat Shurmur. That's right.
He has come out and said he's NFL ready. Now, I don't know if that's again because he's on the staff and he's friends with Dion, but I remember hearing that and thinking, you know what, this is the guy.
Because they ran an NFL offense, and I think this is one of the reasons why Dion hired Pat Shurmur, was for his son
to get NFL ready.
Now, the other wild card in all of this, and it's written all over the place, and you can do with it what you want, and you can say whatever you want about it,
Is
the Dion factor.
okay.
All right, does a team want to deal with the Dion factor? And what is the Dion factor?
I don't know. He's staying in Colorado, so he's not going to be hanging around.
But I mean, like, everybody's going to be run, especially if he comes here to New York.
Well, if they
People
don't
are
have
going to be running to him for, for comments and everything else.
and the idea that if they don't have a good season, the coach is on the hot seat, who could be the coach in waiting. That is part of that too.
It's not going to be Dion here, but I'm just saying, like, to me, like, that is a part of this process. Whether you like it or not, it is a part of the process. That Dion Sanders is a huge personality.
No doubt. And the Giants need to figure out a way to win, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's not. We will find out.
It is a real conundrum, Jerry.
It's a conundrum. Yes, it is.
A conundrum.
With the draft now, March from about 6 weeks away.